Hi there guys, thought I'd put together a Neo-Gothic style church, piece of scenery for use in 40k and other things. I drew out the rough design on paper and planned out the brickwork pattern and cut out the walls from 5mm extruded polystyrene foam. Drew some guidelines on those for the brickwork, and when matched them up with my pattern, seemed to work alright in a loose sense, and then I went in with the hot wire foam factory engraving tool and started carving the brickwork. So basically I just stuck to a basic brick pattern, the one I designed and showed earlier on. Basically a repeated pattern with blocks where the smaller blocks are shifted round to make it look more like stone. If you see, I'm rounding the edges of the stones also to give that effect so they don't look like regular perfect little bricks. Basically just trying to give it a bit of looseness in that structure so that it does look like it's been hewn stonework rather than cast brickwork. If you see, not all the pieces are sort of identical in size, just to try and give that loose effect that follows through on things. So that's a completed piece there, and this is the larger side panel completed also. So that gives you a wee look to see how that is before anything further is done to it. Just let you see there some of the irregularities that are there within the repeating pattern. But certainly I was quite happy with how that turned out. Certainly gave a good base structure for a stone wall in that sort of Neo-Gothic style. So next thing I decided to look at was that it's a church style building, so it needed a tower. So I cut out some panels from a piece of the foam I had left to make that sort of narrow tower, put a wee bit of crenellation on the top and sort of tried to mark them out so that they're all the same size to make that tower. As before, repeated what I did, drawing out the brickwork pattern to work with on them. Obviously there's a little less room to work with within that than the big walls, but went in the same again and repeated the same block pattern styling that I'd done on the other panels. And that's me in the process there, halfway through, and that's what the piece looks like before anything else is done to it when the stonework's completed. So that gives you an idea of all the stonework pieces once they've been done before anything else is done. And then I went in and laid out some hirst pieces for the added detail. So laid them out on the bits first, then went in and looked at what I was doing as to putting shapes in place for putting the brickwork through. It's just showing you where I joined the pieces using styro glue, give them a wee bit of support on the interior edges once the brickwork was in place. But as you can see, that holds together quite nicely. Put a little support on the top and again another support on the bottom just to help that shape persist. So for mounting the hirst bits onto the walls, I took and I marked out where the size of the bits. The smaller windows I just needed to inset slightly, but the bigger windows there, as you could see, would stick out quite considerably to mount them. So I decided to put a hole straight through and mount them actually within the hole itself. But the small windows I took and used some carving tools to just take back a fine layer of the foam, with a wee bit more skill with the engraving tool, which I hope will come over time. Still quite new at using it. It would be very possible to take and do this with the engraving tool, but still being new with it, I decided to go in with the carving tools just to ensure that nice smooth flat surface. So basically I was just taking and giving a flat ground surface just below the surface to allow that small window to go in slightly so it didn't look like it was perched on the surface. Then went in and cut out a hole for the larger window to sit neatly in. I then take some glue to fix those in. I'm using styro glue, which is a glue specifically for polystyrene made by HWFF Foam Factory. I certainly have found it great with using on these. It gives a good solid bond between foam to foam and also foam to other items. That's it there, and it says it's an instant tack glue, and it does. It gives it a very, very quick tack. So much so once I'd pressed the windows down and into place, I was physically able to lift the whole piece by the hirst bit. So I was quite impressed at the strength of that, even though the piece was literally just applied. So that's those pieces in place in the tower. So I went on to the other panels and did the same thing, cut out the spaces for the windows and the side panels of the building. On the end panels, I took on one of those, put in a framework for a porch and door, used a little buffer just to bring the door forward so it sits slightly forward. On the opposing wall of that, took and put in a window placement so to mirror that door shape on the back end of the building. I then took some little pieces of gravel, glued them into a small round base and used those to impress a stonework pattern roughly on the actual block work, just to increase that stone look again. So then took the styro glue again and started building the structure of the church. So that's the main body of the church, and we'll see let you see in the next one what goes on after that.